My husband desired his ex every weekend. So I packed for London and boarded my flight. Stay with me while I walk you through this story, and if it makes you feel something, don't forget to show some love, like share, and follow so more people can hear it too. I'm Ariel, 32 years old, and for 6 years I thought I was living in a happy marriage with my husband, Damon, who's 35. We built a life in Atlanta, Georgia. I had a solid job, he had his career, and together we had a beautiful home that felt like the foundation for the family we always talked about starting. On the outside, people would probably say we had it all. Smiles at dinners, vacations once in a while, and the kind of couple pictures that make other people think your love story is steady. But underneath, something wasn't right. It started slowly, almost unnoticeable. Damon began disappearing on weekends. He always had an explanation ready. Work emergencies, networking with his guys, or just needing a little downtime. At first, I believed him. After all, isn't trust the thing that holds a marriage together? I kept brushing it off, telling myself not to overthink, not to sound like one of those wives who nags and doubts everything. Then the pattern got clearer. Every Friday evening, right around the same time, his mood would change. He would grow restless, checking his phone, making excuses to leave earlier. He'd be gone for most of the weekend, sometimes not even texting much. He'd stroll back in Sunday night, exhausted but with that smug little smile like he'd conquered the world. When I asked if he was tired from work, he would nod and say, "Yeah, babe, just a lot on my plate." I tried to ignore the ache in my chest, the little whisper inside me that said something was wrong. I wanted to hold on to the picture of the life we had. I told myself maybe I was being too sensitive, maybe every husband needs his space. But when you love someone, your heart notices what your mind tries to deny. His touch grew colder during the week. His eyes would glaze over when I spoke about small things, as if I wasn't even in the room. One night, I sat alone on our couch with a blanket wrapped around me, waiting for him to come home. The TV played in the background, but I couldn't even hear it. I was thinking about how he had missed dinner again, how I had cooked his favorite pasta only for it to sit untouched. That was the moment I realized something was shifting in my marriage, and not in a way that time or patience could fix. I didn't know the full truth yet, but the cracks were forming. And when cracks keep spreading, one day the whole thing shatters. I had no idea then that soon, my entire world would break apart, and that I would find the strength to walk away. It started with whispers in the dark. One night, I woke up thirsty and padded to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed the study, I heard Damon's voice, soft and low, a tone I hadn't heard directed at me in years. My chest tightened. I froze by the door, listening as he said things like, "I'll always be here for you, and you deserve better." It was gentle, almost romantic, and every word felt like a knife. When I pushed the door open, he startled, quickly ending the call. He looked at me with irritation instead of guilt and muttered, "Just a friend going through a hard time. Don't make a big deal out of it." I wanted to believe him, I really did. But my gut screamed otherwise. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing little things. Receipts stuffed in his pockets from restaurants I had never been to, 2 meals paid for, drinks ordered. When I asked if he wanted to go out together, he would brush me off, saying he was too tired or swamped with work. Yet the evidence said otherwise. During the weekdays, he grew colder. He barely touched me in bed, rolled over quickly, claiming stress or fatigue. He came home late, often distracted, phone buzzing constantly. I tried to keep our marriage afloat. I cooked, I asked about his day, I even planned little date nights at home. But it was like talking to a wall. His eyes were somewhere else, his heart already drifting away from me. One evening, I finally found the courage to bring it up. We were sitting in the living room, the TV flickering between us, but he wasn't paying attention. He kept scrolling through his phone, smiling faintly at whatever was on the screen. My stomach twisted. "Damon," I said softly, "is there something you're not telling me? I feel like you're slipping away. The late nights, the phone calls, the receipts. I just want to know the truth." He looked up sharply, eyes narrowing, and for a moment I saw the man I no longer recognized. "Are you serious right now, Ariel? You're being paranoid. Always inventing problems that don't exist." His words hit harder than a slap. I wasn't inventing anything. I was living with the empty space he left in our marriage every single day. But he turned it on me, making me feel foolish, needy, desperate. I sat there, blinking back tears, and nodded just to end the fight. Inside, though, I felt a piece of me break. That night, I lay awake beside him, listening to his steady breathing, and I wondered when I became invisible to the man I gave everything to. My instincts told me something was deeply wrong, but he made me doubt myself. Still, in the quiet of the night, I promised myself I would find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I was out for coffee with an old coworker when the conversation took a turn I didn't expect. She casually mentioned, "Did you know Naomi moved back? I saw her at the gym last week." My stomach dropped at the name. Naomi, Damon's ex. The woman he had once loved so hard that their breakup was like a storm that tore through his life. He had told me it was all in the past, that I was his present and his future. I believed him. I had to believe him. But hearing her name after all these years felt like a warning bell ringing inside me. Naomi wasn't just any ex. She was the kind of woman who carried herself with sharp confidence, the kind that left shadows in a room even after she walked out. Back when Damon and I first started dating, she had once mocked me at a party, laughing under her breath about how I could never fill her shoes. I brushed it off then, thinking it was insecurity speaking. But deep down, I remembered every word. After that coffee, I started to notice Damon changing in ways I couldn't ignore. Fridays, he would leave work and claim he needed time to unwind, or just a little space. Saturdays and Sundays, he was almost completely gone, disappearing with vague explanations. Sometimes he said it was work, other times it was hanging out with his buddies. But his stories grew thin, riddled with holes. His phone was glued to him, his eyes lighting up at messages I wasn't allowed to see. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking, but the signs were too loud, too clear. One Friday evening, as I watched him put on cologne he hadn't worn in months, my heart whispered the truth I didn't want to hear. He wasn't going to work, and he wasn't with friends. He was with her, with Naomi. The thought of it burned through me, not just because of the cheating, but because of who she was. The same woman who once mocked me, who once looked at me like I was nothing. He chose her. Again. After everything I gave, after every promise he made to me, he still found his way back to her. I lay awake that weekend, staring at the ceiling, trying to steady my breath. The betrayal felt heavier than I could carry. It wasn't just about Damon stepping out on me. It was about the cruel irony of being replaced by the very woman who once sneered at my place in his life. Every time my phone buzzed with silence from him, every hour he didn't come home, the knife twisted deeper. I knew then that something inside me had cracked. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was certain. My husband wasn't mine on the weekends. He belonged to Naomi. And that truth cut deeper than I was ready to admit. That Saturday night, my chest felt like it was carrying a weight I couldn't drop. Damon had left earlier, his excuse the same as always, work. But I knew better now. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't keep pretending. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys and slid into my car. My heart thudded with every mile I drove behind him, headlights dimmed so he wouldn't notice. I followed him across town, every turn making my stomach twist tighter. Finally, he pulled into a quiet neighborhood I didn't recognize. I slowed down, hanging back just enough, and watched as he parked in front of a townhouse. My breath caught when I saw the door swing open and Naomi step out. She looked almost smug, her smile wide as she welcomed him in. He leaned down to kiss her cheek before walking inside, like it was the most natural thing in the world. I sat there in the car, frozen. My palms were slick against the steering wheel, and my throat ached as tears threatened to spill. For a long moment, I wanted to believe I was imagining it, that this wasn't real. But when I moved closer, parking a block away and walking quietly through the shadows, the truth hit me harder than anything ever had. Through the front window, I saw them. My husband, sitting comfortably on her couch as if it were his own home, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. Naomi poured him a glass of wine, her hand brushing against his, and he didn't pull away. He leaned into her, eyes soft, smile tender, the same look he used to give me. The sight cut me open, like every memory of us was being rewritten in that moment. I pressed my hand against my mouth to stop the sob rising in my throat. My first instinct was to storm in, to scream, to demand answers. But something inside me shifted. I didn't want to give them that satisfaction. I didn't want to be the broken wife begging for scraps of honesty. Instead, I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling, and started taking pictures. Every laugh, every touch, every sip of wine, they were mine to capture. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that his lies had a face, and it was hers. The longer I stood there, the colder I felt. The love I had for him, the years I poured into us, started hardening into something else. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was resolve. A quiet, steady voice inside me whispered, "You will not be played for a fool." Not anymore. When I finally walked back to my car, the tears came, hot and silent, but my jaw was set. I drove away with the evidence in my phone and a fire in my chest. That night, something in me broke. But in the breaking, I also found a strength I didn't know I had. I waited until Sunday night, when Damon came home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't his usual, and with that same smug tiredness on his face. My phone felt heavy in my hand, the pictures waiting there like a bomb I was ready to drop. My heart hammered as I sat across from him in the living room, the silence stretching so long it felt unbearable. Finally, I slid the phone across the table. "Explain this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He picked it up, glanced at the screen, and for a second his eyes widened. Then his whole demeanor changed, anger sharp and loud. He slammed the phone down on the table, so hard I flinched. "So now you're spying on me? What the hell, Ariel? You don't trust me at all. You're ruining this marriage with your jealousy." His words were like acid. Somehow, even with the evidence clear, he turned it back on me. My throat tightened as I tried to hold my ground. "Don't twist this on me, Damon. I saw you. I saw her. You're not working late. You're not with friends. You're with Naomi. Just tell me the truth." He sighed heavily, running his hands over his face like I was exhausting him. Finally, he muttered, "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Naomi. But it's not what you think." He leaned back, his tone suddenly calmer, almost patronizing. "It's just physical, Ariel. That's all. She's been a comfort. But it doesn't mean anything. I still love you." His words shattered me more than if he had said he was in love with her. The casual way he said it, like it was a minor mistake, something I should overlook. My heart felt like it had been ripped open, but he sat there expecting me to nod, to accept it, to forgive. "Just physical?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "You think that makes it better? You've been lying to me for months, sneaking around, humiliating me. And you think I'm supposed to live with that?" He rolled his eyes, the anger back in his voice. "You're being dramatic. Every marriage goes through rough patches. Stop acting like this is the end of the world." I stared at him, and in that moment, I finally saw the truth with brutal clarity. Damon never let Naomi go. All these years, I was just filling space, a placeholder until she came back into his orbit. The late nights, the coldness, the distance. It wasn't me, it was never me. He had been waiting for her, and now that she was here, he was willing to throw our life away without a second thought. I sat there in silence, tears sliding down my cheeks, but inside, something hardened. If he thought I was going to keep playing the role of the fool, he was wrong. He had already lost me, he just didn't know it yet. The nights after that confrontation were the longest of my life. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling while silent tears slid down my face. Damon slept soundly beside me, unbothered, as if nothing had been broken. He didn't see the hollow look in my eyes during the day, or maybe he did and just didn't care. I had given 6 years of my life to him, my youth, my energy, my loyalty, and he had spent it waiting for the day Naomi would return. The pain was sharp at first, but then it turned into something quieter, heavier. It wasn't rage that kept me up at night. It was the realization that no matter what I did, I would never be enough for him. He would never choose me completely. I was just convenient, the safe option, until the past came knocking again. That truth sank deep into my bones, and with it came clarity. I knew then that I couldn't fight for a man who had already left me in his heart. I wasn't going to beg him to stay, wasn't going to scream or throw things like I once imagined in my fantasies of revenge. My revenge would be quieter, cleaner. I would take back my power without him even seeing it coming. So, while Damon disappeared on his weekend getaways, I sat at my laptop in the dim light of our bedroom. I started searching for jobs abroad, far away from Atlanta, far away from the ruins of this marriage. It was a wild thought at first, something that scared me. But the more I looked, the more it became my lifeline. The idea of starting fresh somewhere new gave me hope I hadn't felt in months. One night, as I scrolled through job postings in London, I remembered Elijah, an old friend from college. We hadn't spoken in years, but I knew he had moved overseas. On impulse, I sent him a message, just a friendly, "How have you been?" To my surprise, he replied quickly, warm and genuine. Our conversation flowed easily, like no time had passed. When I told him a little about what I was going through, careful not to reveal too much, he encouraged me. He said his company in London was hiring, that I should apply, that I deserved better than what I was settling for. His words lit a spark in me. From that moment, my plan began to form. I updated my resume, submitted applications, and started discreetly transferring small amounts of money into my own account. Every step I took was quiet, hidden, but filled me with a growing strength. I didn't tell a soul, not even my closest friends. This was my secret, my escape route. Damon thought he still had me under his thumb, that I was too broken to leave. But while he wasted his weekends with Naomi, I was building the path that would lead me far from him. And the day I would finally walk away was getting closer. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning while Damon was still asleep. My heart pounded as I read the words over and over. "We are pleased to offer you the position." It felt unreal. London was no longer a dream. It was a door wide open, waiting for me to walk through. The salary was better than what I earned in Atlanta, and the opportunities were endless. For the first time in months, I smiled, not because of him, but because of me. From that moment, my revenge stopped being just an idea and became a plan. Every step had to be careful, deliberate. I started transferring small amounts of money from our joint account into one I had opened in my name only. It wasn't about stealing. It was about reclaiming what I had worked for, what was rightfully mine. Each transfer felt like a quiet victory, a secret piece of my freedom slipping into my hands. I researched flights late at night when Damon was too busy texting Naomi to notice me sitting across the room. A one-way ticket to London stared back at me from the screen. My finger hovered for only a second before I clicked purchase. My chest tightened with fear, but also with a strange lightness. There was no going back. The days leading up to my departure were a blur of careful preparation. While Damon vanished on his weekend escapades, I pulled out my suitcase and began packing. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes I loved, keepsakes that mattered, documents I would need. I folded each item slowly, tears slipping down my cheeks at times, but underneath it all was calm determination. He thought I was sitting at home, waiting, hurting. But I was already halfway gone. On the morning of my flight, I placed a plain envelope on the dining table. Inside were the pictures I had taken that night outside Naomi's townhouse. The smiles, the touches, the betrayal caught in still frames. Alongside them were divorce papers I had printed and signed. No screaming match, no dramatic scene. Just cold, undeniable truth. I stood there for a long moment, staring at that envelope, my hands trembling. It wasn't just paper. It was the end of the life I had built with him, the end of every promise he had shattered. But it was also the beginning of my freedom. When I zipped up my suitcase and closed the door behind me, there was no note, no goodbye. I wanted him to walk into that house and realize I was gone without a word, without a chance to manipulate me again. I wanted him to see the envelope, to feel the shock, the loss, the emptiness. As I drove to the airport, I felt lighter than I had in years. Damon thought he was winning, sneaking off to Naomi every weekend. But he didn't know that while he was busy chasing his past, I had already packed up our future and boarded mine. Ariel drove in silence, the hum of her car filling the empty spaces where her thoughts used to scream. Her suitcase rested in the back seat, everything she could carry of her life stuffed into it. Every turn she made toward the airport felt unreal, like she was living in someone else's story. Yet, the adrenaline rushing through her veins reminded her that this was hers. Every choice had led here. Damon thought she was home, waiting for him as usual, the wife who tolerated his excuses and looked the other way. But not tonight. Tonight, she was rewriting the ending. She parked, cut the engine, and sat still for a moment. Her hands trembled around the steering wheel, not from fear but from the gravity of what she was about to do. One last deep breath, and she grabbed her bag, pulling it over her shoulder. The airport buzzed with voices, footsteps, and the distant announcement of boarding gates. To everyone else, she was just another traveler. To herself, she was a woman breaking free. At the check-in counter, she slid her passport across with a steady hand. The agent smiled politely, unaware of the storm Ariel had survived to reach this point. Boarding pass in hand, she moved through security, each beep and scan feeling like checkpoints on her journey to freedom. Her pulse quickened, but her heart was steady. She wasn't running in panic, she was walking into clarity. When her boarding group was called, Ariel stepped onto the jet bridge, her chest tightening as if testing her resolve. A part of her wanted to look back, to imagine Damon discovering the empty house, the envelope on the table, the unraveling of the lies he thought would never catch up to him. But she didn't look back. Not once. She found her seat by the window, pressed her forehead against the cool glass, and closed her eyes. The engines roared, the cabin shook, and slowly the ground fell away. With every second, the distance grew. Not just miles, but years of sacrifice, silence, and compromise. Ariel let herself grieve quietly, a tear slipping down her cheek. She wasn't mourning Damon. She was mourning the woman she had been, the one who gave and gave until there was nothing left. As the plane pierced through the clouds, sunlight spilled across her face. Ariel opened her eyes, inhaling deeply. It felt like the first real breath she had taken in years. Grief and freedom braided together inside her chest, heavy but liberating. She whispered to herself, barely audible over the drone of the engines, never again. Never again would she shrink to fit a man's expectations. Never again would she let her worth be measured against another woman's shadow. London wasn't just a destination. It was the rebirth of the woman Damon thought he could break. Ariel leaned back in her seat, steady now, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The life she left behind was gone, and she had no plans of ever returning. Damon came home late that Sunday evening, humming to himself as he tossed his keys onto the counter. He expected to find Ariel in the kitchen, maybe curled up on the couch waiting for him like always. Instead, the house was unnervingly silent. He called her name once, twice, and got nothing back. A frown creased his face as he moved toward the bedroom. The first thing he noticed was the empty closet. The rows of dresses, the shoes neatly arranged, the scent of Ariel's perfume. All of it was gone. His chest tightened as he yanked open drawer after drawer, each one hollow. Confusion twisted into panic until his eyes landed on the envelope sitting neatly on the nightstand. His name was written in her handwriting, clean and deliberate. With shaking hands, he tore it open. Inside were photographs, grainy but damning. Him and Naomi at the hotel, at the cafe, at the places he thought were hidden. Beneath the stack sat divorce papers. For a moment, Damon's vision blurred, his throat dry as realization punched through him. Ariel had known. She had known and waited for the perfect moment to walk away. He dialed her number, but it rang endlessly until the call dropped. Again and again he tried, his voice rising in desperation. "Pick up, Ariel. Please, just talk to me." But the silence on the other end was unyielding. She was gone, and she wasn't coming back. Desperate, he turned to Naomi, the woman he thought would soothe his ego, the one he told himself he loved. She answered with a laugh that cut like glass. "Damon, you really think I want you? You were just fun. A distraction. Don't call me again." The line went dead before he could respond. He stood there, phone in hand, the weight of rejection pressing down on him. Two women gone in the same night. Ariel, the steady anchor of his life, and Naomi, the reckless fantasy he threw it all away for. He had neither. He had nothing. By the end of the week, whispers began to spread. Friends he had bragged to now exchanged knowing looks behind his back. Family members called, their voices laced with disappointment. His mother's words stung the worst. "You had a good wife, Damon, and you threw her away for nothing." At work, colleagues who once admired him now avoided him. Invitations dried up, trust dissolved, and the respect he had built over the years collapsed like a fragile house of cards. Every room he walked into felt smaller, every conversation hushed. His reputation, once polished and envied, was in tatters. Late at night, Damon sat alone in the house that no longer felt like a home, staring at the closet that Ariel had emptied. The silence mocked him, echoing the choices that had led here. He had thought he was untouchable, clever enough to keep both women, strong enough to live a double life. But in the end, he had lost them both, and himself along with them. London greeted Ariel with a chill in the air and the hum of a city alive with possibilities. For the first time in years, she walked with her shoulders straight, luggage in hand, not because she was running from something, but because she was walking into her own life. The skyline looked like a promise, the streets like a canvas waiting for her footsteps. Her new job turned out to be everything she hoped for, demanding but rewarding. The office sat on the 10th floor overlooking the Thames, and every morning she sipped coffee by the window, watching boats drift past, a reminder of how far she had come. Colleagues respected her ideas, her work ethic, her quiet resilience. They didn't see a broken woman abandoned by her husband. They saw Ariel, sharp and capable, someone with a future. In time, she found herself building more than a career. She formed friendships with people who laughed with her without judgment, who invited her to dinner parties, who showed her that life didn't end at betrayal. In the heart of a foreign city, she carved out a community, one that welcomed her as she was, not as someone's wife or someone's shadow. Elijah became an anchor in this new chapter. He was steady, thoughtful, the kind of man who asked how her day was and genuinely cared to hear the answer. Sometimes they'd sit in cozy cafes, steam rising from their mugs, conversations flowing easily from books to childhood memories. Other times, he'd walk with her through London's winding streets, pointing out hidden corners of the city, reminding her that discovery wasn't just about new places, but also about rediscovering herself. Ariel never rushed to label what grew between them. For now, it was enough that she was seen, truly seen, in a way Damon had never bothered to look. Elijah's presence wasn't about filling a void. It was about walking alongside her while she built something whole within herself. Nights in her London flat were no longer filled with tears. Instead, she'd curl up with a glass of wine, her laptop open to projects that excited her, or she'd journal by the window, letting the city lights remind her of her own spark. She had thought she lost everything the day Damon chose Naomi, but what she really lost was the weight of someone who never valued her. Looking back, Ariel didn't carry bitterness. She carried lessons. She had given her best years to a man who couldn't see her worth, but in leaving, she reclaimed them. Damon's betrayal no longer defined her. It freed her. As she unpacked the last of her belongings in her new apartment, she smiled at the thought. She hadn't just packed for London. She had packed away the remnants of a broken marriage. And here, in the heart of a new city, she finally unpacked her freedom. Do you believe Ariel made the right move by leaving Damon behind and starting fresh in London? Or should she have tried harder to save her marriage? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really like to hear your perspective. And if stories like this connect with you, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a like, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.